Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
I named my anxiety now because my psychiatrist always joked with me. She's like, well, why don't you name it? And then you take away its power. And I call it a girl, and her name is Stacy. You know, Stacy, we don't have time for this today. And I shit you not, some days it does work. Let's just check ourselves at the door, and Stacy's not invited today, but days Stacy wins a little bit, and that's okay.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Rennebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. Hi, I'm so glad you are here for another episode. This week I'm speaking with a lovely lady, Jess Siemers, and she is, she suffers from panic attacks. She's getting better. But she has them, and she's going to talk about them and how it all started. She's also going to talk about grief. We're going to talk about COVID and having a baby and getting married during COVID and being gay and getting divorced and dealing with that and parents. And she's got a lot of stuff going on. Please make sure to stay tuned for more episodes coming up because I've got so many incredible guests lined up. I could talk about it, but just stay tuned. And quickly, just go rate and review the podcast on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever the hell it's called. I can't explain just how important that is, so I won't try. Just go do it, please. Thank you. And if you want to watch this episode on YouTube, please feel free to. All the episodes are on YouTube at Bunny Hugs and Mental Health channel. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to give you Jess.
My name is Jess, obviously, and battled anxiety and panic disorder for almost 10 years now. Started a podcast of my own called Panic Button to really try to figure it out, try to help others figure it out, really see how we get through these issues together. Because it's kind of like a lonely world out there with anxiety or mental health issues. I feel like a lot of people don't want to talk about it or don't have the platform to talk about it or really just people to talk about it with. So I kind of wanted to hit on all of the above with my channel and be able to show people it was a safe space to be yourself, talk about how kind of fucked up we are, and really just let them know they're not alone and we're going to get through it one way or the other, no matter how that looks. So, with my journey itself, I got diagnosed in college, my last year, senior year of college. And it was weird because I didn't know what was going on. I thought that it was the end of the world. I had only heard of anxiety, in loose terms, not like I knew somebody who seriously had anxiety. And it was kind of like, oh, that's in the movies almost. We didn't talk about mental health as much 10, 15 years ago. So I felt definitely kind of embarrassed about it and didn't really know what to do. But I got the help that I needed, got some medication going, and all was good. And then 2 years ago, almost 2 years, I lost my father. And I like to say, thanks, Dad, because that kind of re-sparked some issues that I didn't know were still there. From that point on, before that, I felt like my anxiety was a little bit more under control. I took my meds. It was good. Just kind of went with the flow of things. But yeah, I just kind of hit a wall in November and needed to figure it out. I had a son that was born in the pandemic. I went through a divorce. I moved into a home that I bought. A lot of big changes. So I needed help. And I knew I finally needed something different. So in December, I was able to talk to a psychiatrist and a therapist, and kind of with the two of them together, had just decided that maybe Lexapro, which was the medicine I was on, was not the right path anymore. Maybe it just stopped doing what it needed to do. So they switched my medication, and that was probably one of the hardest things I had been through in a very long time with anxiety. I was having panic attacks a couple times a day. Wasn't able to really sleep. So that transition was not fun. They don't tell you how bad it gets before it gets better when you've been on a medicine for 7+ years and then you cut cold turkey and try something else. It definitely got worse before it got better. A lot of dark times, a lot of hard times. And that's when I started Panic Button Podcast, which is my platform, and just started talking, because I realized talking about it, like you with everyone and all the wonderful people I've met, that's what helps. And that's what gets us through these times when we feel like it's only us going through them. Because even today, I don't feel like we've turned the page enough on mental health, but I'm here for the ride, trying to continue to push the envelope and say it's okay. Like, we're all going through this. It may look different, but one way or the other, we know somebody who is suffering a disorder or themselves that's going through it. So really just wanted to show we weren't alone, and I've been able to connect with awesome people like you.
Now that we got the whole, the whole general story there, I might go back and we'll get some details. You said it was in your last year of college that you got diagnosed, but leading up to that, I mean, you must have had anxiety and panic attacks and just not knowing what the hell was even going on.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't even know what it was, like how scary
definitely.
was that for you?
So I think that, like, it's kind of like when I don't know what the proper way is to explain it, but it's almost like when you tell a doctor what's going on and you explain, and like all the things prior to that finally kind of like start to make sense, where I'm like, oh, when I was younger, I didn't want to be away from my mom. Like, I had separation anxiety. I would hide and say I was going to school, and I didn't go to school because I thought if I went to school, I would come home and I would never see her again or something. So all of these things kind of started to make a little bit more sense. And I was like, wow, okay. So that's like when it really hit me, when I was like, oh, I might have a little bit of a problem. Like, we might have something going on here. And my dad suffered from anxiety, but all we had known was that he took medication and that was it. It wasn't something you sat down and talked to your kids about like you try to do today. It was kind of like, oh, no, it's like Dad's got high blood pressure. He's fine. Dad takes Lexapro. He's good. So,
Oh, he took the same meds?
He did. Yes. He was on Lexapro as well. So it was just like, I was like, oh, it's hereditary. It's normal. Thanks, Dad. So I didn't try to think too much into it. But the older that I've gotten and the more I've looked back on life events and how I acted and behaved, things started to make a lot more sense. And things started to kind of come full circle, I would say, for sure.
Right. Before you knew it was anxiety or panic attacks, what did you think it was?
I don't really know. I thought it was just because it always went away. It wasn't like something that stayed forever. I think I probably thought it was just normal. It is what it is. Some days I kind of feel weird and some days I kind of feel good. And I didn't really like going to parties and being around a lot of people. And I thought that I was just kind of antisocial, when really it was a lot of crowds made me nervous, and, tight spaces and all the claustrophobia, all the things that, now I'm like, okay, so I did like people, but, there was always a kick. So it was definitely interesting trying to navigate that. And once I was diagnosed, like I said, all of the things started to make sense. But then I was like, oh boy, like I'm kind of fucked because I've been this way for a while. So, and I didn't know there was medicine for it, because again, it wasn't really talked about. I think in college, they talked a lot more about depression and how kids kind of go through that and battle things that come with that. But I was lucky enough to never experience depression, even till this day, knock on wood. I always joke around and say that's the one thing I haven't checked off my list. So it was weird because everyone thought that I should have been depressed and I should have been all of these things when really it was just like, I didn't want to go to a party. I didn't want to, see a lot of people. I kind of wanted to go to class, come home and do what I was there for. So yeah, senior year looked a lot different than the first 3 years when I was there. So things really started adding up before I graduated and came home and became like a real adult.
So when you did see a doctor for a diagnosis, was it like at that point you were like at some point you must have realized, this isn't normal. Not everyone does feel like this. Like this is different. Yeah.
So when I spoke to a physician on campus, and that's, it's not the best resource, but it's what's available for college kids, So I did end up coming home to see my primary physician here. And, when I spoke to him right away, he knew. He's like, this is anxiety. And he explained panic attacks and kind of how different things work.
Was that your dad's doctor as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So he was a little clued in.
Me, him, and my mom and my brother actually shared the same primary physician when we were all of age to see him, me and my brother, because he was my parents' doctor. So yeah, he was, like, well, see him with your dad. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My dad doesn't talk about this. So it was kind of like a segue into that where he's like, oh, your dad's been on medicine for years for that. Like,
I can't believe he said that.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Like,
there's no doctor-patient
trust circle. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know that that's not how that was supposed to be and that those feelings would continue to kind of get overwhelming if I didn't do something. I remember one time my mom and my stepdad physically had to come down to college my senior year when I was going through all of this and I didn't know what was wrong because I was having panic attacks, ended up in the emergency room a bunch of times. I'm having a heart attack, I'm going to die. So I was, in the emergency room a lot by myself, 4.5 hours away from home. So my mom and my stepdad came because I was like, if you guys don't come here, I'm going home and I don't know if I'm going to come back, So it was almost like we got to figure this out. So they drove down, but there were times where I would just sit in the bathtub and stare at like a fan. I remember vividly because I needed to like center my focus on one thing. Otherwise the room was spinning. I couldn't snap out of those panic attacks by myself. And they were so bad at first because I didn't know. And then when I did find out, it like almost heightened what was going on because then I started doing research on panic attacks and anxiety and almost made it worse for myself. It's almost like sometimes you're better off just going through the motions instead of reading the what ifs or what could happen.
Really? You think researching your diagnosis is a bad idea? Like, don't tell me anything. Just give me the medicine.
Dude, I am the doctor. Like, I go to my doctor and tell him what's wrong with me. Like, and then I just tell him, this is what's wrong. What are we going to do about it?
Right. So, I saw a TikTok video. This is what I have.
Right. I found this. This is valid. Somebody online said this. It's got to be true. So, but yeah, I mean, the more that I know now, I think it's better. But when I was a kid, I just scared the shit out of myself. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, holy cow. Like, and then I was like, did everyone around me know that like I was anxious and like didn't want to say anything? But, we didn't talk about it like we do now. So that's a huge thing too. Like that tries to push me forward is just, let's talk about it because maybe something could have changed for me. Maybe I would have figured it out earlier, but do I think that would have mattered? Yes and no, but at least it would have given me better tools instead of me going out in the world and Googling all that happened when I was 20 something years old and freaking myself out more than I needed to be, so.
Yeah. Well, in a weird way, you're lucky that your dad had anxiety as well. Like I had anxiety and panic attacks as a kid. And I remember my first year out of home calling mom and dad and like, explaining what the hell's going on. And it was more like, it was like, just pull up your bootstraps.
Right.
And, it's like, so then, a lot, my anxiety did turn to depression actually and addiction and other stuff. But I don't know if it turned into that or it was just a different symptom that arose. But yeah, anxiety and, okay, this is a hard one, but I think I would rather feel depressed than anxiety.
Okay. Fair.
Because it is just like, it is more, it's like, well, I don't know. It's hard to say. Depression feels more like dark and round, and anxiety is like pointy.
Yes.
Really pointy.
Okay, I get that.
It's like scary, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, this is like,
I know.
this
Honestly, like,
hurts.
even my therapist, like, till this day is just like, are you sure you don't think you've battled, like, any depression? I'm like, I don't think so. Like, I've never really experienced it. And she's like, that's good because a lot of anxiety does turn into that. And I'm like, shh, don't even put it out there. Like, we're good. One thing at a time. Like, yeah. So I've been riding this wave for a while now, luckily, but I think having a kid kind of helps, keep me preoccupied, keep my mind sharp, and can't really fall down that rabbit hole as easily.
Yeah, it really takes you out of your own body because now you have like this,
right?
Like, you've got this thing you have to like take care of,
right?
And, yeah. I'm sure you don't mind me saying this, but you are also queer.
Yes.
And you were married to a woman, and that was the divorce you had. And now you have a new partner.
Yep.
Any of that growing up and realizing, because a lot of young gay people, when they're figuring it all out, or even when they do figure it out, there's a lot of just situational anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. I still think as an adult, I experience situational anxiety with being in the LGBTQ community for sure. But, oh yeah, the first time I came out to my mom, I remember just like breaking down. And she
Wait, how many times did you come out to your mom?
Just once.
Well, you said the first time you came out to your mom.
Oh, no, just
Sorry,
once.
I'm just being a smart ass. Sorry.
Like, did I do it twice? I was like, no, she's a smart ass. She would tell me too. She'd be like, asshole, I already knew this. But
why are you coming out to me again?
Right? Again, we already did this. We know you're gay.
Sorry.
No, but when I had told her I was it was my senior year of college. So it was almost, again, one of those things where like, ding, like, here's another thing that could line up with all this. Yeah, I told her, and, I broke down crying, whatever, and she thought that it was going to be, like, a lot worse news than what was coming. She's like, that's it? She's like, calm the fuck down. Like, my mom's probably like that, like, tough love. Or she's like, she's like, we know, it's fine. Like, so she's like, as long as you're always with somebody who treats you right and respects you, that's all we could want for our kids. And yeah, so my coming out experience was not anxiety ridden as most can be, which was good. My dad, that's a little bit of a different story. I think he always accepted me for who I was, but he didn't always know how to say it. And he did, when I told him that I was gay, he did say like a part of him felt like died. So it wasn't like,
well, that must have been tough.
Yeah, it wasn't like the best wording. Didn't really know what that meant per se. I know like my mom kind of explained to me that, it's not the life that they wanted for their kid, but it doesn't mean that it was wrong, but they just knew it would be harder. And today being 30, I actually understand that. Because I do face a lot of situational anxiety, being out in the community with my fiance and my son, or my son and his other mom, who's my ex-partner. It's tough. It still is tough today.
Why did you decide to be gay? I'm kidding.
Right? Shut up.
Why are you doing this to me?
Right?
No. Yeah. And as a parent, you would get it more now. And
yeah, because it does. It just makes things a little bit harder. And, life is hard enough for your kids and kids growing up today. So I get that. So I don't think that he meant it with ill intent, but it still wasn't like the nicest thing to say. It's still, that's not what you expect your parents to say. I expected them to be, like, oh, kind of, okay, like, whatever. But when you tell them that part of you died, that's kind of like, oh, fuck, I just told you I was dating a girl, not like I killed somebody. Like, so it was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe just poor choice of words. But yeah, as an adult.
You didn't say explain more, Dad? You were just like, okay, well, this conversation is over now.
Because,
yay, bye.
At that point, unfortunately, my dad and I didn't have the best relationship. We've definitely,
anyway?
Yeah, we definitely had seen our trials and tribulations. But
Gotcha.
before he passed, it was the best our relationship had ever been, which is always something that's really crazy and good, actually. But yeah, it just play on words. I don't know. I guess I could have asked for more clarification, but it's almost like since his response was so different than my mom's, I was already like 1 foot out the door where I was like, okay, I'm done with this conversation. Like, have a nice day. See you later. So
Yeah, checked it off the list there, did that. Bye.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't like, let's go trolling for babes.
Right? Like, oh, we have something in common. Right.
Yeah.
As my brother jokes about, so.
You and your brother troll for babes?
Right? Well,
nice.
He's now married. Well, he's been married for 7 years or something. But he'd always joke, oh, we're both lesbians. I'm like, okay, never heard that one before. Like, there's always got to be somebody in the family that cracks jokes. But yeah, everyone's been super cool in my family about it. It is what it is, especially these days for kids to come out. It's tough. It's not the most welcoming society that we live in today. So
yeah, it definitely depends on the community too and stuff. Like I grew up in a rural kind of area of the country, and I like even less than a year ago in front of my kids' high school, they had the rainbow flag on the rainbow sidewalk, and they had to redo it like 4 times because kids kept spray painting it or peeling out or doing stupid shit. So, and then you go to an urban school or something, and it's just like you don't even come out. You just are. You're just you. You don't have to come out.
Right. No questions asked, no explanation, no nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's better than it was, but it's still not.
A lot of improvement still.
And so you found a nice lady, and you decided to get married. And was that nerve-wracking?
Yeah, so we I'm terrible with dates, so I don't ever know dates of when things happen. I always just like a couple years ago. People are like, that was like 10 years ago. I'm like, yeah, a couple years ago. No, but my son is 4 now, so I was with his mom. We were married for a little over a year. And when she was pregnant, because she carried our son, the pandemic just started.
It was her egg?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. So she's biologically the mother. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
So she had carried him. So we were already married, all the fun things. And then this pandemic hits and she's pregnant. And the day that these, like the severe lockdown or the cold lockdown, whatever they called it in the States, was the day he was born. So that was very interesting that it was only her and I in the hospital. Every time I left, had to get my temperature taken, mask, everything. It was scarier than shit. We didn't want to be there. Other people there were sick. We didn't know if we would get sick, so it was terrifying. So add that to the list already. We're welcoming a child into the world and there's a pandemic. We're like, holy shit, we're the worst. This kid's going to be fucked forever.
I'm telling you, just as a new parent, having your first kid, right? Pandemic or not, it's anxiety ridden, and for someone with anxiety,
right. So I was already flipping out. And she had anxiety as well. So we're both very familiar with the whole realm that it brings you to, and it was crazy. It was definitely super, super tough. Our parents didn't meet him for a couple months. So it was weird. 2 people that I had never even held a newborn baby before him. So it was terrifying in itself. Like you said, all the things that come with being a first-time parent, on top of a pandemic, not being able to leave, like get space away from baby, mom, other mom, anything. So it was tough. And unfortunately, it got the best of everybody, and it just was not what we had hoped it would have been. So we just kind of put everything aside and did what was best for our son. And now here we are co-parenting our 4-year-old little guy. And we figured it out. That's all you can do. You push through it. Definitely think that the divorce and the pandemic was not good for my mental health. Shocker. But, I have a good support system. I've always had my mom and my brother, and our family is very close-knit. So I always had people that were very, very supportive. And the fact that I did have a little baby boy, it kind of is your drive that you have to do better. You have to be better. We can't stay like this forever. So it really is like everything you do is for them. So that kind of really helped me probably push through it. But, I don't like to, before I didn't talk about my feelings. And now it's like, that's all that I do. But before, I'm like, it's fine. I'm fine. So I kept digging and digging and digging and burying myself in this hole. And that's when, like I said, when my dad passed away, I think that's when it really just the top just exploded off. And I was like, I can't do it. It was too much. And my current partner, we've been together, it'll be 3 years in March. She has been my rock through a lot of that stuff as well. And been able to navigate my relationship with my son's other mom and co-parenting and doing all the fun things. So you figure it out, you find your people, and you got to do it.
But I mean, I'm assuming you also give yourself grace and let yourself have moments. But yeah. So you're not like you were before, where you just
No, my partner will probably tell you that I cry more than I ever have. I probably still only express a lot of my feelings with her, but I'm more open. Like, she'll know when I'm having a bad mental health day, when before I wouldn't say anything to anyone, because I was like, no one's going to understand. No one's going to get it. I'll just get over it. When, she battles her own things as well, and she understands. So it's easier for me now to talk about it and to know that that's what I have to do to feel better, because it always made me feel better talking about it and telling someone about it. And, journaling was never really for me. I felt like I got it out, but I didn't get it out enough. When I was able to go to therapy once a week and talk to my partner and really realize that that's what I think was missing, was just being able to express myself and know that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to have a bad mental health day, that it's okay to say no or take a break or just relax. Those things weren't normal for me before, and now they are. They're becoming more of my routine, and my mental health now is, it's like just totally up. Got to hit the bottom before we keep going back up. It's 100% true.
My youngest son, he just started university, and he's having anxiety issues. He has been for a while, off and on, but I tried to explain to him, like, you're going to have anxiety forever, even with medication, even with counseling and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have anxiety, but I don't let it get to the level it can get to you. Like, you become more self-aware, and then you do the strategies and you use the tools that you've been given. And so you're never cured of it. You begin to almost self-treat yourself,
and
because you've
it.
gone.
It's just like, okay, I could have anxiety today and I might not have it tomorrow. That's okay. But it's always somewhere there.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent." Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple, and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can?
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Yeah, and if I am going to have anxiety, I'm not going to spiral. I'm just, to the point that it is a panic attack and I'm going to the ER.
Right.
I am going to tell my spouse or my parent or whoever right away so that they can be my support and help me, ground me and whatever. So, yeah, it's interesting, anxiety. I hate it, but...
I know. I named mine now because my psychiatrist always joked with me. She's like, well, why don't you name it? And then you take away its power. And I'm like, you're full of shit. That's going to do nothing, where we think that we're smarter than the doctors and they don't know anything. But I did name it, and I call it a girl, and her name is Stacy. And sometimes I do, and no offense to anyone named Stacy, I personally don't know a Stacy, so it was the only name I pulled out of literally a hat. And I was just like, Stacy, we don't have time for this today. And I shit you not, some days it does work. Some days it does take that power, and you're like, okay, let's just check ourselves at the door, and Stacy's not invited today, and we're okay. But other days Stacy wins a little bit, and that's okay.
Does Stacy have a face in your mind?
Yes.
Do you know what Stacy looks like?
A little bit, yeah. And I don't like her.
I'm curious.
I can call her a lot of bad names.
Is she super femmy?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For some reason I knew that.
Not, just kind of the person that just, those people that walk into the room and just, immediately irritate you? That's Stacy. I'd like you to meet Stacy. Yeah, that just, you walk in and you're just got a bad taste in your mouth from them, and
like everyone on a reality TV show,
right? Yes, exactly. Ooh, I'm gonna tell Nick you said that.
Okay, no, not that kind of reality show. I mean, Real Housewives or something.
Right? Yes. She is the Real Housewives, the original series.
Some of the shit that people say works, I'm sure only works because it's a placebo. But if a placebo works, then it works.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that your doctors took you off your meds. To me, it's funny because it sounds like you had a lot of situational stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, maybe the meds were fine for the, she's been on for 7 years to stop panic attacks and stuff. Maybe this is situational. She's grieving. She's in a pandemic. She's gone through a divorce all within a year or whatever it is.
Yeah. And like I said, 2 years later, then Dad died, so it's just yeah.
Are you back on the same meds you were originally? Are you
No, I'm still on. So I take, I'm super transparent about it. You got nothing to hide. I take Zoloft now and Klonopin as needed. Klonopin scares the shit out of me, so we don't really take that. That's just in case of a panic attack, Gotcha. So I just take the Zoloft daily. So that's the new Lexapro. But, it's funny that you said that, because when I was talking to my primary physician when all this was happening, he agreed. He was like, maybe it's very situational. You're going through a lot of different things. Because circle back a couple months before November, I was lowering my dose of Lexapro because I'm like, I'm cured. We're good. Not a lot's going on. Think life was good. And he's like, okay, maybe we kick it back a little bit. And if you need to, you go higher again, whatever. I said, okay. So then Dad passed away. The end of the second half of the year was tough. My dad passed away in October. So November, December were really hard. And I definitely experienced, the seasonal depression for sure. Not quote unquote depression, but just couldn't do anything to go be happy. I just felt like I was dragging around, whatever. So my primary physician was like, I'm going to give you the Klonopin to try. Cause I couldn't even focus on anything. I was having trouble working. So that was more of when I was panicking every day. So he's like, okay, let's try this. But then you're only allowed to be on it for 2 weeks or something. So I was on it for 2 weeks and then I stopped. But then I just noticed that my anxiety was just different. And he was like, I'm just a primary physician. Maybe it's time to see a psychiatrist. So I was like, okay. I never had. I'd seen therapists before, talked to them, but never a psychiatrist for medication and to learn about that. So, explaining my story to her, she did agree that it may sound situational, but it also may sound like this has been around for 7 years and it might not be the best route anymore. So yeah, I was definitely surprised though that they did stop me cold turkey. That was tough. Yeah, I mean, and they warned me it will get worse before it gets better. You will have a lot of panic attacks probably for the next couple of weeks as your brain is, transitioning chemicals and, the Lexapro is flushing out and you're putting new medication in. Like, yes, they're in the same family of medicine, but they're still different. That fucking sucked. Like 100%. That month was not fun. And then the months following that were also not fun because then you got to find like your happy medium of like your dose. Like, where do we go now? And it's been, I would say, 2-3 months that I've been in a good place now. I think I haven't had a panic attack since the 15th of last month. And before it was a couple times a week. So I can't complain.
Oh, so you were, as early as a month ago, you were still having panic attacks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Just because I have a lot of health anxiety. So and I get vertigo. So if I get dizzy, it's game over. I'm already panicking in my head. So that's kind of what my next chapter is on working on with myself, is understanding that vertigo, you're okay. It's just, you're dizzy. It goes away. You're fine. That I got bronchitis. I could have convinced myself that is how I died. That was the end of it for me. So total hypochondriac over here. So I've noticed that, that is my next thing to focus on, is not letting physical, things being off try to trigger my anxiety. Because otherwise I'm able to control it a lot better for sure. Being around crowds or all of the stuff that would make me anxious before, I'm able to kind of control that aspect of my brain and navigate that situation. But yeah, the health anxiety is tough for sure. That is definitely something that kind of gets you.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing too.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I had a stomach ulcer, and I don't know if the ulcer triggered the anxiety or if the anxiety created the ulcer or vice versa. And a lot of people have IBS. Yeah. Lots of people that anxiety and panic have IBS, bowel syndrome, and digestive issues and stuff. So yeah, it's shitty.
Amazing what our mind can just kind of gather and do and convince you of. So really getting control of that is just key, and learning all the tools that I can and help others learn is just huge. Where I'll be able to tell my partner, feel a little off, and she knows exactly what to do, and boom, no medicine needed. I'm okay. So that's different than it was, so that's a win for me. Before I'd be searching around, where's my medicine? I'm going to have a panic attack. I couldn't find my medicine. I'd start panicking even more, but now I'm able to just kind of redirect myself, and that's all we can do is just keep learning how to get through it. Cause it passes and it's part of life. Like we said, it's not going away. I'm not naive. Yeah. I know it's going to be there forever. It's going to be something that I always carry around. Stacy's going to be this little old lady in my back pocket. But, I'm just not going to let her out all the time anymore.
Yeah. Another thing I tried to explain to my kid was everybody has something, whether it's diabetes or whatever, and you just have to deal with it all your life and medicate it. And sometimes it'll flare up and not flare up, and it can cause secondary things if you're not careful. And so you just, be self-aware and know when shit's happening.
And not be afraid to talk about it and tell somebody, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny. It wasn't that long ago that it was like you said, people didn't talk about this stuff. Even anxiety, anxiety now, it's everybody and their dog talks about anxiety. Right? It's before it was so-and-so was in the hospital, what for? And it was I think that it wasn't even an anxiety attack. It was they had a nervous breakdown.
Right, yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yep, it was a breakdown.
When I was a kid, my mom said I had a nervous stomach, which is the 1980s way of saying I had anxiety.
Yeah.
and
you're
back
just
then,
nervous. It's fine. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And back then they gave me Pepto-Bismol. And I was so they treated the physical part, but they didn't
Right.
do anything about the
Like,
actual
this gonna help
anxiety.
my brain? Okay.
I mean, it kind of did, because like if my stomach didn't hurt, then it didn't
See, it's a little
start
true,
that
yeah.
spark. Sort of, but yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about how your dad passed and that whole situation?
Yeah,
And
that's
the
fine.
day? Okay.
So he passed away in October of 22. It was completely out of the blue. Got a phone call to my cousin's house that a police officer had shown up, and that was the last address they had known of my dad's. So saying that he was in an accident. And I'm like, what the fuck? It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I hang up with them, call my dad. They're like, your dad passed away. And I'm like, no, he didn't. Because we didn't really talk to those cousins that much. So it was kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. It's not like somebody would make that a joke, but it was weird. So I called my brother and I was like, did you get the same call from our cousin? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to try to call dad. Okay, well, dad didn't answer the phone. So I called my cousin back and I said, what police department came to your house, tried to navigate a little bit on my own. I ended up getting a hold of the sheriff who actually went to my cousin's house, and she had said, yes, I'm sorry, your dad passed away this morning. So we're like, oh, what the fuck? Like, it was like, almost didn't feel like real. Like, because like, what happened? He wasn't sick, and all of the normal things that you think come with that, it just like, it wasn't there. They're like, he was driving to work and he just passed away. So I was living with my mom at the time. So I ran down to her room and I was just bawling, like, dad is dead. Like, because my parents still had a good relationship after the divorce. They had 2 kids. So they were, they were very, very good to each other still. And she's like, what are you talking about? Jumped out of bed, and you're just in like full panic mode. You don't know, like, is this real? What do we do? Like, who do I call? So I'm calling my dad. Stupid me. I don't know why. Calling his phone. Nobody answered. Obviously, dad didn't answer. Okay. So we got a hold of his wife at the time, who I did not speak with really. My dad lives in Indiana, so we weren't like that close, but close enough. And got a hold of her, and we all met at the hospital, and he was just driving, and that was it. That was the story. That's what stuck. And they couldn't do an autopsy because he had COVID. He tested positive for COVID. So they wouldn't do any other testing for us.
So it could have been a heart attack or something, but because he had COVID, they're just like, well,
yep,
he died of COVID.
Yeah. Yep. So basically, they did do a toxicology report, and it did say that there was an enlargement of something that basically would have led it to have been a heart attack, I would assume.
Oh, right.
That is the most information that we got. Obviously, COVID was listed as a possible implication, but we didn't know our dad had any health issues, no nothing. So it was weird. It was bizarre, and it didn't feel real. And 2 years later, it still doesn't feel real. That's tough that he just passed away. And there was no closure, no nothing. He was pronounced dead at the scene. So like he wasn't in the hospital when we got there to the hospital. After everything, he was already gone. They had already took him to a morgue. So the first time I was able to see him was a few days later. He was cremated eventually, but, me and my brother were like, we need to see him. We did a personal viewing with our family, and that was probably one of the hardest days of my entire life. I tell my mom to this day, if her and my brother didn't walk up to the table to see my dad with me, I would have been on the floor. My brother caught me. I about collapsed. So that was tough. That was very, very tough. And I'm a mom, so you want to keep it together for your kid. You want to keep it together for everybody else around you. That's always been who I am, is I like to keep it together. If somebody needs something, I'm the person you go to. And it was tough, and it was hard, and not getting closure, and not being able to watch my dad grow old with my kid and my niece and, my brother and our family. That's tough. It's like I got something taken away from me that I wasn't ready to lose. Because, again, like we watch our parents get old. That's, what supposedly is supposed to happen, in the storybook. And that definitely was very hard for my anxiety journey, adding grief to it for sure. It was not fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I lost my mother-in-law this summer, my wife's mother, and oh my God, it's our first. I mean, we've lost grandparents and
right.
People, but like this was by far our closest relationships.
Yep.
That we've ever had that have passed, and it is difficult. She was sick for a couple of years, so it was like but it was still just.
Oh yeah.
It's like you said, even when you're prepared for a year and a half, it's just
you can watch them get old. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away a year ago. And he was very sick, and our family progressively saw him get worse, and he was in his 80s, and then it's kind of like you expected he wasn't going to be around much longer, and you get prepared for that, but then it hits and it's still not the same. It's never you're never prepared for that, no matter what that looks like. So it's terrible.
It is
definitely.
Like surreal, like you said, is like it just doesn't feel real.
It still doesn't till this day. I tell that to my partner all the time. It's just like, because, I get news or something and you want to tell your parents, you want to share the news. I was very close to my family. Again, me and my dad didn't have the best relationship, but before he passed, we were on the mend. We were definitely fixing things and getting back to our relationship. And, everything happens for a reason. I do believe that, but yeah, it's just, it's tough. Life doesn't prepare you for that, to be that young and lose a parent. I mean, young, I say I'm 30, but that's pretty young. I lost him when I was 28. So it's
absolutely.
Yeah, it was tough. And the sporadic part of it is what hurt the most. And it was scary. That triggered a lot of anxiety for me. I honestly took his, the death certificate and showed it to my primary physician to be like, this is what they found off of what they could examine. Like, what should I be concerned about? And he's like, okay, well, let's look at your heart. Let's test your cholesterol. Let's test all these things. And, that scared me from a mental health standpoint for sure. Cause I was like, great, I already have anxiety. I'm already a little fucked up. Now something could be wrong with my heart. I don't know. Dad just dropped dead. Like, so yeah, that definitely sparked a lot of
and you already
anxiety.
have physical anxiety about physical health stuff.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, oh God, great. Like, here we go. Excuse me. But yeah, it was.
Are you sick?
No. COVID?
Are you sure?
No.
Okay. Did you get COVID?
Like 4 times.
Oh, well, shit. If you can have COVID 4 times, you could.
Oh, yeah. I'm invincible at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm ready for it. I'm invincible for sure.
You'll be 200 years old going, God damn it.
Well, it's funny. We have longevity in my family. Like, my great grandma was 101. We had her siblings were like 98. So I don't know though if I want to live that long, like they say anymore. How good could life be at 100? I don't know. Yeah, that one 360, but.
So now life's all right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, there's still days that things happen, but yeah, life is definitely all right. I'm kind of excited to wrap up the end of the year. It's like a bittersweet thing. This year has been very long for me so far. And
how so?
I just think like the journey with the medication and like the self-discovery took a lot out of me. All of the self-discovery things. I feel like when I was excuse me, see you jinxed me. Now I've got something going.
Better get tested.
Right. I've had it. This will be number 5. We're fine then. But I feel like, I make everybody laugh that at 30, I really had like a nervous breakdown, like a mental midlife crisis, because it's just like, it's changed so many things in my perspective on life and how I view mental health and my priorities. Yeah. It's just been a journey and it's been bittersweet.
Gotcha.
So I'm just ready to like put a bow on it, send her off and keep going. It's been a long year. We got a couple months still. So.
Well, I hate to break it to you. self-discovery and being proactive and learning about yourself. It doesn't stop on December 31st.
I know. But we can tell ourselves that it does, so.
I've been doing it for 10 years, and it does get, like anything else, it gets easier, right? Especially when you're like first at it. It is extremely uncomfortable because you kind of have to go into some dark places to heal. And
exactly. And that's been like this first set of the year, this year in general has been like, you get to those dark places and pull yourself out, and it's all we can do. So hopefully at least the dark part of it is done. I'm ready for the more healing part of it. So
yeah, it's like I had to get sober and I had to do all these it was like building the foundation, the basement of the house of healing that I was making. And it's like, okay. Yeah. And some things are actually kind of fun and satisfying now. It's like I did EMDR therapy. It was like I was looking forward to it. It was like, oh my God, like I'm stuck with this shit in my head that now that I have the foundation, I can actually deal with this stuff now. And it's like, oh, I can't wait to fucking get rid of that thing.
Right.
It's time again for that Some Bunny special, a segment where we chat about who cooperated in your mental health journey and helped fill your emotional tank. Brought to you by Co-op, which is a great company, and they've been super supportive. But who's been in your corner throughout, or who's been in your corner throughout this shit journey?
My mom, for sure. Yep.
Shout out, Mom.
Yeah, very close to my mom, so.
And picking up babies with her brother.
Right?
Thank you so much for that, Jess. I feel bad. Jess and I had to record twice. We had some technical difficulties the first time, so we had to redo it. But that's fine. I really like her, and I like her podcast, Panic Button Podcast. Go check that out. And you can also check out other stuff in the show notes, like merch store, Buy Me a Coffee, the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So anyway, you can go do that as well. And while you're at it, please don't forget to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.